I made this Blackwater ecosystem tank 100 days ago for these baby guppies, and it has completely transformed since day one, and I'm going to show you exactly how I did it, so let's get right into this build. The first thing I did was put a frosted glass tint on the back of the tank to hide cables. Then I put the tank on a leveling mat and it was time to start aquascaping. I decided to go with this giant piece of wood, and as soon as I set it up right, I knew I was going to make it into a tree, so I got another piece of driftwood to make branches. I then glued the two pieces of wood together using cotton balls and super glue. After the glue set, it was time to add the lights and filter. For the nutrient dense layer, I decided to use aqua soil in a mesh bag to keep it from making a mess with the sand. Now, I'm sprinkling crushed up root tabs to add extra nutrients for the plants since I'm going to be using sand as the main substrate. I then added a generous amount of sand, about 2 inches in the back and around a ½ inch layer in the front. I am now going to add a little bit of water to settle the sand so it's easier to work with while aquascaping. I'm adding these rattan roots, and later on in the video you'll see why that was a mistake. I decided I want a big clump of roots to make it look like it was coming out of the tree, but it didn't turn out how I envisioned it. It is finally time to fill up the tank and let it cycle. After filling it up, I was happy with it so far, but it still needs a lot of work. For this tank, I decided to try something new. I'm going to be doing a dark start. That means letting the tank cycle for around 30 days without any lights on or plants. 2 months later, and this tank is full of tannins and bacteria has completely covered the wood. This is completely normal, but I didn't want to waste time waiting for it to go away, so I scrubbed the entire tank down and did an 80% water change. That definitely made it look a lot better. It is finally time to plant. I started by planting Amazon sword in the back right corner since it's a heavy root feeder and that's where the aqua soil is. I then planted some micro swords, some Ludwigia needle leaf, a Crypt green, and 2 more. Then I planted a Crypt brown, some Anubias attached to a rock, some Crypt Parva, and then I planted a few stems of Rotala rotundifolia and some water Sprite. Now I'm going to be adding some Christmas moss on the wood. And the planting was all done. I then got the rattan roots stripped of the bark, and they shouldn't grow any more biofilm. I randomly placed them in the tank to make it look more natural. I thought the sand bed was still missing some texture, so I got a few small pieces of dragonstone to spice it up. Just like the roots, I randomly placed them in the tank. They didn't look natural at first, so I used the tweezers to sink each rock into the sand bed. I also decided to add some leaves from my bonsai tree, so I let them sit in boiling water so they sink right away. I think that gives a very natural look, and they'll be great for microorganisms to feed on. I'm adding some Salvinia minima to suck up extra nutrients and outcompete algae. A day after planting, and there is a layer of surface scum on top of the water. So I installed an air stone. This will provide surface agitation and will also provide the tank with oxygen. One day after installing the air stone, and the surface scum was completely gone. I thought it would be a good time to introduce some microorganisms from another tank. These are sea shrimp, and they will help clean the tank and be a perfect food source for my fish. Now, you can't catch these guys with a net, so I decided to take some plant trimmings, and there should be a few of them on the plants. I put the plants in the tank and planted them. I also took some mini ram's horn snails from that tank, and these guys will help eat algae and any decayed matter. After adding them, they immediately begin to eat algae off the rocks and glass. Now that the aquatic part of the tank is done, I'm going to add a plant on top of the log. I filled this pocket in the log with some plastic wrap to prevent it from growing mold. I filled it up with sphagnum moss and put a cryptanthus there. The tank is finally done. Now it just needs some time to grow in. It has been exactly 100 days since I set up this tank and it is finally ready for fish. I decided to add some baby snow white guppies. Now, this is just a temporary grow out tank for them so they won't get eaten by other fish in my community tank. Almost immediately after adding them, they began to eat detritus worms and seed shrimp. Thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this, and I'll see you in the next one.